Welcome in, everybody. Tuesday live stream on Texas football. It is a wild and crazy evening with a lot flying. It's Portal Mania and Portal Madness with the Longhorns 5 days open portal after the loss on Friday night to Ohio State. Also tomorrow, the deadline, January 15th, to declare for the NFL. So things are happening quickly. Departures, keeping trying to retain their current roster. And I know you've been following it all day on Texas football. On the digital platforms, and of course here on the On Texas channel. We're excited to talk about it here for the next hour. Plus, he is Rod Babers. He is CJ Vogel, who's been as active as anybody on the phones, and it's going to be a crazy one. We'll start with the breaking news and the head news that came down here this afternoon into this evening. Michael Taaffe, the senior captain, second-team All-American, has made the announcement that he will return to the 40 acres. Will be playing for the Texas Longhorns next year. Pretty big get, guys, not just for the on-field performance, but the leadership, the culture, the locker room, a lot there with a lot of bodies and a lot of people moving on either into the portal or into the NFL, their next phase. Guys, Michael Taaffe returning is pretty big for the defense and for the entire team. I have to believe. Your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the secondary should no question be a strength coming off the performance of last year, and then being able to return a guy like Michael Taaffe. I know they lose Makuba, you lose Jahdae Barron. Lose Gavin Holmes as well, but still return some key guys who got a lot of playing time in critical moments like Jelani McDonald, Jalen Gilbo, another guy, Malik Muhammad, of course, another player that performed for you at a high level in that secondary. So you expect all those guys to take a step forward. Got Derek Williams coming back to the secondary, who was a starter for you early in the year. I think big things are expected from guys like Xavier Phil-Sami and Kobe Black. Expect those guys to take another step. So ultimately, I got high expectations for the DBs, as I always do, but I expect those guys to be a strength of the team, one of the strengths of next year's team. And obviously, with a lot of guys departing, there are going to be a lot of uncertainties and unproven commodities on next year's team. Secondary, they should answer a lot of questions sooner rather than later, considering what they're bringing back.
CJ, your thoughts on Taaffe and just his impact, not just on the field, but in the room?
Oh, it's huge for both, right? Anytime you can return a second-team All-American to a roster, I think every team in the country would say, yeah, let's do it, right? Let's run it back. And that's exactly what Texas is doing with Michael Taaffe. Look, it's been a long ride for Michael Taaffe, and to get to where he is now, to return one more year, to keep his story going at Texas, I think is really cool. And we'll see if he's maybe making the switch over to number 7. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but I do think it's really cool for Texas, or really cool for Michael Taaffe, and it's huge for Texas, not just on the field, but off the field, right? You talk about a team's heartbeat. Normally you get that from the quarterback position. I don't think there's any secret last year. The heartbeat of that team, for the most part, was Michael Taaffe in that back end, right? Jahdae Barron also in the mix. You look at Jake Majors on the front side, Barron Sorrell. All these guys were those leaders that you looked at to be the guys in the locker room, to set the example in spring and summer conditioning, and to be the guys in the locker room that led the way from that 2023 semifinal team to a team that made it really a yard shy of potentially making it to the national championship in 2024. Now, for that to be the case in 25, that bridge will have to continue to be built. And I think a guy like Michael Taaffe is just who you look at to lean on in the locker room to help get the standard where it needs to be once again with a new set of faces.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, obviously last year the Longhorns had 20 players off their 2 deep into the NFL by my count, 11 of which were drafted. So far it stands about 22 from the 2 deep. Obviously 4 of the 5 offensive linemen are going to be moving on, with Cam Williams' announcement today that he will be headed to the NFL along with Kelvin Banks, Jake Majors, Hayden Connor. So 4 of the 5. We'll talk about the offensive line. Again, like last year with all the pass catchers, Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, also Gunnar Helm and Silas Bolden are moving on as well. So Arch Manning will take control. The running back room looks good, Rod, but the skill players and that whole offensive line is going to have to be retooled and rebuilt. There's talent there, but that leads to the unknown of how it all comes together.
No doubt. I'm with you. I mean, you're going to lose a lot on the O-line, period. I mean, I don't even know if you can quantify losing Kelvin Banks, who may be the greatest offensive lineman in Texas football history. I mean, that's a legitimate conversation. That's not just, that's not hyperbole at all. I mean, he may very well be that when it's all said and done. Then Jake Majors, who started more games than any other player in Texas football history. And at the center position, a really important position too. You've had, the luxury of having him as a 4-year starter for you, and then losing Cam Williams, a guy who has a first-round upside. We'll know if he'll be drafted in the first round. Definitely, probably in the top, 50 picks, somewhere around there. But Hayden Connor's another guy that's been, a staple for you on that offensive line. So that's the biggest transition maybe on the team, in my opinion, because they've been. There's been so much continuity for so long with that group. It feels like a lot of those guys have been around for a really long time, and I would think of all the position groups on the team, a lot of them are going to be going through a ton of turnover. To me, that is the one that could, to me, has the most consequences potentially if those guys don't step up. If you don't get, those guys to gel quickly, that could have the most of a reverberating impact on the rest of the team. Because, Texas O-line this year was a Joe Moore Award finalist. You're one of the best offensive lines in the country. That was probably also the case last season. You were one of the better O-lines in the country. You want to keep that standard, but then you got a new quarterback coming into the fold and the new pass catchers. I think that's something we've experienced before. Something I think that Sark's system is prepared for too, because I think Sark's system really can weaponize and it can, facilitate to a lot of different types of skill sets at receiver, and you got plenty of talent there. You got talent on the O-line, but that I will say that position group is going through more of a transition, I believe, this offseason than any position group on the team. I just feel that way.
100%. And they played a lot of football together, which is the glove concept of 5 offensive linemen. Defensive backfield, too, is a lot like that, Rod. You've talked about playing continuity. They had
got some of those guys back.
Got a lot of those guys are coming back. Derek Williams, of course, will get healthy and be back from his knee injury. Michael Taaffe returning. We'll keep an eye on the rest of it. We're going to get an update on the retention efforts, and this is the new phase of football, right? When the season ended, 5-day window of portal opportunity, which leads to negotiations and those type of things. We'll talk about the talent retention and the re-recruitment of players. Also, I want your thoughts, CJ, on what the new offensive line might look like coming forward. But let's start with, and we'll end with our great partners here tonight on the On Texas Football live stream. Rod, tell them about Andy Ludicky and the crew that are getting us in and getting us out tonight.
Appreciate them and appreciate our friends, Andy Ludicky and his team for being part of our team here at On Texas Football. Look here, folks, if you're looking to diversify, you may be someone like me that has their hands in multiple businesses. Well, Andy and his team can help you diversify by finding you different businesses that will fit your time allotment and your financial goals. If you've been stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and no control over the money you make or your schedule in general, Andy can help you go through a process that will help you find businesses that will fit your skill sets and your financial goals. We know that franchise ownership isn't for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your financial destiny, just give Andy a call today, 404-973-9901, or you can reach out to him online, email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. That's andy@myperfectfranchise.net. So thank you very much to Andy and his team for sponsoring our Tuesday night live stream.
All right, CJ, let's get the update. I know you guys have been reporting all day. I've been following it like a lot of our audience tonight. 2 significant starting type players that were maybe trending to seek other opportunities within the transfer portal. Sounds like there's good news on one front and they're still pending on another, all on the heels of the Michael Taaffe news. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, Michael Taaffe returning, that's kind of separate from the news that we're talking about now. Of course, that's great for Texas in that sense. But we were monitoring a situation earlier, including 2 starters or 2 very well-known players from the Texas 2024 roster that maybe they would toy around with the portal. And right now, we found out that both were very serious about potentially entering the portal, playing their 2025 season elsewhere, one of which has been remedied a little bit, right? The fire's been put out a little bit. We're still waiting for it to be fully extinguished, as you will, in terms of, putting out a fire. But I do expect one player of the 2 to return. Now we'll see about the other. We're not going to dive into specifics or divulge on the names for the time being. Of course, this is pretty fluid, so who knows where it all ends up. But right now, positive news on one front, and we'll kind of wait and see on the second one. Of course, Texas has been through this before. Cam Williams being one of the most recent, right? It was SMU. It was a lot of schools up in the North Dallas, Texas area that wanted him to enter the portal last year. Obviously, Jahdae Barron, Xavier Worthy, all kind of had the same kind of song and dance around this time of the year, where it felt like, they wanted to maximize their NIL. And how could you not, right, at Texas with the years that they had? But Texas has been through this before. And if Texas feels like they need this kid or a couple of kids to compete and contend in 2025, they're going to be very competitive to make sure that they're on roster for next year.
Hey, CJ and Rod, because one of the other things that I think is and we're not saying the names because, as you just said, one of them seemed like it might have been, strong consideration this morning. And by this evening, that thing has been, by all accounts, somewhat remedied and in a better place. So that's why you don't mention the names. We will when we certainly have confirmation. But it does seem like, Trey Moore, their Longhorns in a good place with Trey Moore, the UTSA transfer, who really had a heck of a second half of the year. One of the strengths of this team on paper right now is going to be that front seven. I know they have to replace some guys in the defensive tackle spot, but Colin Simmons and Ethan Burke, Colton Bosick coming off the edges, some of the young guys, plus to get Trey Moore back would be pretty big for this team.
Yeah, it sure would be, and look, we've talked about where Texas needs to hit on the portal. Defensive line is one of them, but when you start looking at the individual talent across the board, it's hard not to get pretty excited about this team, right? And I know, Aaron, Rod, and I, all three of us have really talked about the young talent on this team. How can you kind of complement that as they get a year older? Well, bringing in the number one recruiting class certainly helps too. So I know that Trey Moore, what he would bring to this team should he announce his return, and right now it's kind of up in the air again with him, maybe leaning more so towards a return. We'll see, of course, what his NFL draft grade is. Moore would be a veteran presence on a team that might be relatively young next year. So a guy, again, who came in with a very professional-like mindset to come in, hit the ground running, be a great addition to the locker room. If you can carry over that piece on the edge, well, look, since November 1st, over the second half of the season, he had 7.5 sacks, right? 9 tackles for loss. He figured it out, it felt like, towards the back half of the year. And that's exactly what you'd hope for a guy who came in with 22.5 over the last 2 seasons.
And Rod, if you're gonna have a lot of young guys on that defense, the anchors are obviously gonna be Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill. Derek Williams returning at safety, Michael Taaffe now anchoring the back end with Derek Williams, and then some of the young guys you mentioned, Leonga Lafau at linebacker. These are good, really, really good players. But a guy like Trey Moore, who at this point, if he were back next year, would be 21, 22 years old, played a lot of football at the college level. Nice mix. We saw that this year in a lot of ways. The nice mix of veteran players with this really talented young group that's coming.
Yeah, we just saw you need depth, right? Period. The more depth you have, more talented depth you have, the better. I'm with you. I think the edge position for Texas, that's another strength. Even if, Trey Moore doesn't come back, I still think it's going to be a strength. But with him, you talk about being one of the, most dangerous groups and position groups in the country. Because Colin Simmons is definitely going to be in the conversation to be one of the best defenders in college football next season. And I like Colton Bosick and Ethan Burke. I like the way, those guys are progressing. In my opinion, one of your strengths on the team too. And you could have at every level of the defense, elite personnel, but also leadership, right? When you talk about Anthony Hill at the linebackers, Michael Taaffe at the safety position, and down on the defensive line, guys like Colin Simmons, on the edges as well. Ethan Burke's another guy that's a leader for you. So, it's these days, honestly, you're going to have some attrition like that. You end up losing some good players, but it would be nice. It'd be a luxury if you could end up keeping that guy around and building up that edge position overall, because and there's no doubt. That could be the difference in you taking the next step to getting past the Final Four, to get into a championship.
Yeah, that next step. Longhorns have been to Final Four back-to-back years. Michigan did that before they won it. Ohio State's been there a couple times, and now they have a chance to win it. Georgia took them a couple times to knock on the door before they kicked in the door. Longhorns hope that learning and now bringing young talent and great recruiting classes can be the next phase. CJ, I asked you about the offensive line. How do you foresee it? Obviously, we saw Trevor Gooseby this year. DJ Campbell will be back. How do you see the battles shaking out at center, guard, and left tackle and right tackle with Cam Williams' decision today?
Yeah, of course. Kelvin Banks and Cam Williams both announced that in the last 48 hours, really, that they're headed to the NFL draft. That was expected for the most part. Texas feels good about its tackles, right? You got Trevor Gooseby at left tackle. You got 5-star Brandon Baker out of Mater Dei, California, coming back for year 2. That will be at right tackle. What's going to be interesting is how the middle shakes out. You got 3 spots. I imagine one of them at least will be manned by Cole Hudson. The question is where, right? If DJ Campbell returns, I have him penciled in at right guard, which bumps Cole Hudson down to center. And we'll see, again, if he's able to or if Neto Umeozulu takes that step, as we all expect for him going into year 4 at left guard. We've seen and heard a lot about him behind the scenes, but haven't really seen a whole lot of him on the field. I believe only 166 career snaps for Neto Umeozulu. So that's where I'm looking right now. Cole Hudson could play left guard, center, or right guard. That's all, very fine and dandy, right? The question is, where is he going to begin 2025? And I think that big question comes down to whether or not DJ Campbell announces his return or heads to the NFL. The other guys to keep an eye on as well, if Cole Hudson is put at right guard, you'd put Nato at left, and I think you'd have one of Connor Robertson or Daniel Cruz battle out for that center position, and some really talented veteran guys like Connor Stroh battling out right behind them. Malik Ogbo, another one for that backup guard spot. So we'll see a lot to go through. Of course, we'll see how winter conditioning all shakes out. Some of these guys, Rod, it firsthand. A lot of these guys' bodies still change even after 2 or 3 years in the system. It'll be interesting. But right now, I do think it'll go something like Gooseby, Umeozulu, Hudson, Campbell, and then Brandon Baker at right guard or right tackle.
Yeah. Depends on how you get your best 5 out there, right? I'm with you. I like the Gooseby, Baker, tackle combination, but you got versatility, you got position flex on the inside. To me, it feels like whoever mans the center position the best, I almost let it play out from there.
No, I like that.
I need that to me has got to be some, considering you're losing Jake Majors. That would probably be my top priority. I'd be like, nah, whoever gets, because you're right, I love the tackles, and you got some flexibility inside. They like that, by the way. They like, being able to manufacture depth on the inside with cross-training guys. They're going to continue to do that. But I would base my decision on who the top 5 are, which one of those guys is the best center I got out of those guys, whether it be Connor Robinson, Daniel Cruz. I don't know if he's going to throw.
Yeah. I know we talked to Daniel Cruz on the live stream last spring. That guy, very impressive. I know they kind of recruited him to let him play center in high school, somebody that Kyle Flood really likes. And that's, anytime you have depth like that and you've recruited well, the competition, the cream will rise to the top. And as you said, Rod, you get your best 5 on the field.
Yeah, that's the goal.
That'll be the big question, right? Because when Jake Majors went down a couple times throughout the year, whether it be just a tweaked ankle or whatnot, getting stepped on, it happened a couple times. It was Hayden Connor that bumped from left guard to center. Now, is that because he just knows the offense a little bit better? He knows the calls a little bit better. He has that veteran experience. I kind of believe so. If that were to happen again, I think it would have been a Cole Hudson or Connor Robertson situation going in for center. So that'll be interesting to see which one of those 2 or 3, when you include Daniel Cruz, starts out spring football here in about 60 days at that center spot, because that'll tell you a lot about what the rest of that offensive line will look like.
Agreed.
Yes. Interesting. And obviously the one question we keep getting asked is Quinn Ewers. I mean, I'm assuming Quinn Ewers will put some type of statement out tomorrow. I mean, I know On Texas has reported consistently that he's headed to the NFL. I know there's some reports out there on Twitter and other spaces of other things and NIL opportunities. But at some point, Quinn Ewers will put a statement out, in y'all's opinion, correct?
I think so. Look, everything that we kind of know from Quinn is going down the path of, in a way, let's make $1 about this, right? And so I think there'd be some sort of sponsored announcement. I think I saw one of the comments earlier, whether it be Roback or Panini or something along. I'm kind of thinking that'll be the case. And if not, I think he'll go very much the route of that of Jordan Whittington last year, saying farewell to Longhorn Nation. I think we all remember that. Pretty touching. Whoever I was watching it with was cutting onions next to me, so you understand where that was going. But I think Quinn will go very much the same route as one of those 2.
Okay. We'll watch for that tomorrow. Big announcements came down today. I thought it was interesting that Daniel Jeremiah, Rod, he started watching Matthew Golden tape and said, he might be the first receiver off the board based on the tape he watched. And then Matt Miller jumped in and said, man, just a great route runner. And I know we've talked Coach Shipley, talked about Jackson really liking Matthew. That would be great for Matthew Golden to elevate his game. And what a back half of the second part of the season when all the injuries hit a receiver, he really showed out he could be a wide receiver one.
Yeah, I was actually, man, blown away by that statement. But
there you go.
Started thinking about it. Thank you, Matthew. When you started thinking about it, and I started, pondering, watching the film and watching him the last, 6 games of the season when he really started to ascend to the number one wide receiver spot for Texas. All the questions that I had about his game, he really answered them all. I was wondering, could he truly be a deep threat? He started catching balls down the field on Georgia, right? And being a deep threat in the playoffs against teams like Arizona State and even against Ohio State. He caught a deep pass. And I wondered, with his stature and frame, could he be a guy that can make contested catches? And we saw that, throughout the season, right? Making contested catches in the red zone. And then saw him actually go up high. Something else I was wondering, with a smaller guy, could he go up over defenders and make plays? He went up over defenders and made plays. So all the questions, all the questions that I may have had about him, can he be a yak guy? He really did answer all those questions. So there really aren't a lot of holes in his game, if any hole in his game. And I think that's probably what he saw too, that, man, let me look for, because when you're looking at us and when you're looking at things from a scouting point of view, everybody can look at film and tell you what a guy's good at. That doesn't take a trained eye. And the untrained eye can go, that guy's fast. That guy, man, he jumps high, he gets out of his breaks real fast. Man, he's really physical. Anybody can get that. What scouts are really paid to do is to figure out the flaws in your game and to be able to identify if they're coachable or not. Can we coach these flaws out of this game, right? And their skill set and the different data points associated with that. And when you look at Matthew Golden's game, you don't see a lot of flaws.
Right.
And that's what you see.
I think there's two things to this. Coming into the year, I think it was pretty well known that Isaiah Bond was expected to be the number one. So when you see a tweet like that, it kind of hits you because it's completely foreign, right? It wasn't until about 3 weeks left in the season, really the college football playoff, where you looked at Matthew Golden as the bona fide, undoubted number one on his own team. And then you go back into the deeper body of work and you say, okay, he's kind of always been that number one, right? You look at the one-on-one routes that he was winning in the red zone against Michigan, against Vanderbilt, all the way throughout the season. That happened very early on. I saw this tweet too, and I go, wait, okay, maybe. Yeah, okay, I see it, right? It took me a minute for that vision to register just because of the way I'd kind of preconceived him on the pecking order here at Texas alone, but the film won't lie. His production certainly was that of number one in the country, number one wide receiver on his team as well. The second thing, and this is more to Chris Jackson, because Matthew Golden spoke about it and the media availability, saying, I came to Texas to learn, to develop, and Chris Jackson did that, right? He is the NFL background. Look what he did to Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell in year one, Jordan Whittington as well. I wanted to become that next guy in this system, in this offense, playing for him. If you're Chris Jackson, you had 3 guys drafted last year, potentially another first round or second round pick with Matthew Golden, and who knows what Isaiah Bond runs. Well, we've talked about it with Tashard Choice putting guys in the league. Yeah. That's how you do it. And now Sarkisian, with the 4 years that he's been at Texas and the draft success at running back, at wide receiver, what we're going to see at offensive line and tight end for the second consecutive year, pretty good. I'll leave it at that. Yeah. Pretty darn good.
Starting to build that pipeline. And I will say this, I don't know if anybody has increased their draft stock more than Matthew Golden did in the last month.
Yeah.
If he's the number one receiver being taken off the board, nobody in college football improved their draft stock more. Nobody.
100%. And obviously he'll go to the combine and the measurables and 40 time and stuff will be looked at closely. And then the pro day for Matthew Golden. Same time, the production, gosh, the one-handed catch on the first drive against Ohio State with a guy draped on. He just made all the catches, and such a dependable, reliable player and target for Quinn Ewers. That was obvious. And to your point about the draft guys, I mean, the Longhorns, we'll see what Cam Williams, does he sneak into the first round just because of the projections? Kelvin Banks certainly will. So possibly 2 tackles, a quarterback, 2 receivers, a tight end. All could be going in the first 3 rounds of this draft, which, Longhorns didn't have a tackle or an offensive lineman drafted for decades. Texas could have 2 in this draft. So you see the pipeline that's being built, the development that's happening. And yes, I mean, the 2 guys to me that have really improved their stock the most from one year to next would be Johntay Barron and Matthew Golden, right? I mean, Johntay went from 4th, 5th round pick to maybe top 25. The work that they did against Ohio State just the other day, again, shined a spotlight just on how talented he is. And, we know what kind of leader he is. Johntay Barron is going to blow up the interviews. They're going to love this guy, his character, his the intangibles he brings. And, that's the thing that I think you keep seeing over and over again about Texas players. They're just good football players. They're just good football players, right? I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what the NFL is looking for. They're looking for good ball players that are reliable, dependable, teammates, all that. And that's coming out of this program right now.
Yeah, and premium positions coming out. I mean,
yes.
The NFL values certain positions over others. We could have that discussion about what should be a premium position. How is center not a premium position? Running back's not. But you talk about tackle. You got 2 of those coming out. Cornerback with Johntay Barron moved from nickel to corner. Matthew Golden at wide receiver, premium position. Quinn Ewers, quarterback, premium position. Even now D tackle, what they're being paid is now considered a premium position. In terms of Sark constructing the roster like NFL teams would construct the roster, and a lot of emphasis on premium positions with Sark, right? Quarterbacks, tackles, wide receivers. I like that.
We've talked about a lot here on the Tuesday nights. I know you guys have on the other shows. That's how Sark's built the roster. He's building it like an NFL team. We're going to make those our priority in recruiting, and we're going to get quarterbacks first. We're going to get offensive linemen, especially tackles. We're going to get pass rushers. We're going to get cover corners and touchdown scorers, no matter the position. And then now you're seeing that matriculate to the top and coming out in the draft the last couple of years, because a lot of skilled talent for sure. All right, while we're on wide receiver and Matthew Golden, that conversation, I did see this, and now it's been confirmed by a couple of outlets. I don't know if you want to throw this up here, Matthew, but reports that former Texas wide receiver Johntay Cook is already out of the program at Washington after a short amount of time. As this Dogman 24/7 has confirmed, the UW football and former wide receiver Johntay Cook have made the decision to part ways. Apparently there were some locker room issues and immediate issues of kind of the same stuff that stemmed from why he fell out of the favor with Texas. Not a real surprise. Seems like a guy, you guys, in Johntay Cook, ultra talented, but needs to find a better path of how he operates day to day.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, right? Because we've talked about the talent, but when you can't piece it together off the field, what's the talent matter anymore? So that's certainly unfortunate. Again, you don't get many cracks at playing big time ball in Division I, and 2 schools in 2 months, essentially not a great look. So hopefully, Johntay finds the path and gets back on the field somewhere.
He's got to make it about ball again, though. And I know he loves social media. I know he does. But he's got to be a little bit more discreet about his messages. Got to get focused on ball again. He's got talent. Everybody knows that. You wouldn't have made it to Texas. You wouldn't have got on that roster at UW without talent. So talent's not the issue. How distracted is he? How focused is he on the task at hand? So that's what Johntay's got to get back to. I'm wishing him the best. He'll get plenty of opportunities, because that's what talented people who are distracted, they get opportunities. Right. But how many before he squanders them and nobody's willing to take a chance on him anymore? So no matter where he goes next, to hell with social media, man. To hell with what everybody's saying about you. If you don't like what people are saying, change the conversation.
Prove them wrong.
If you don't like what people are saying, don't go on social media and try to argue with them about it. If you don't like what people are saying, change the conversation. You can do that with how you play on the field. That's simple.
Yep. Day to day. Sark, I know it was Gunnar Helm that kind of revealed Sark's message about the 3 gears of life right during the pre-up to the Cotton Bowl. And, it's the academics, your personal life, and then your football. And when they're all cranking the right direction and they're all moving, the gears move pretty smoothly. And that's when they were talking about the grade point average rising and, not a lot of off-field issues and, the personal life then gets in the way of your football playing and performance. Texas has a lot of guys whose 3 gears are cooking. Johntay seems like one that's got to get some gears, because one gear goes out, or has an issue, all of a sudden it bogs down and it affects every phase of your life. And hope the best for Johntay Cook. without a doubt. All right, we'll talk more about that. I want to tell you about our friend Mark Saunders. He's a Texas alum, and gosh, we're seeing all the horrors of fires and catastrophes going on. Things can happen quickly in life, and you want to make sure as you go to sleep tonight, is all of your stuff protected, and you want to make sure it's all protected in one place by someone you can trust, and that is Texas alum Mark Saunders, 35 years of experience. He is your Texas All-State agent. He's the only insurance agent you will need, and it's everything from your home, of course, your car, your boat, motorcycle, RV, ATV, anything you've got. And if you're looking for someone local to the Austin Round Rock area here in the 512, give him a call. The Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders, 512-218-8571. That's 218-8571. Again, ask yourself as you ponder it and put your head on the pillow tonight, are you in good hands? Everywhere you will be with more than 35 years of experience. If you have any doubt about that, make sure you call Mark tomorrow. Call his office and get set up for an appointment. He'll go over everything with you and make sure you're where you need to be. 512-218-8571. All right, guys, what players are we missing here? What are we still watching coming into tomorrow? Obviously, Quinn Ewers and an announcement. A lot of it has been decided, but we mentioned Trey Moore. What else, CJ, are you guys following into this evening in the early morning hours? Tomorrow is the deadline, January 15th, to enter the NFL draft. It's also the deadline when the portal window closes 5 days post your final game. So what are we still keeping our eyes on here?
Yeah, DJ Campbell's probably the biggest one for me. I know Trey Moore is right up there with him, right? Edge rushers, especially of Trey Moore's caliber, who has really figured it out since November 9th, I think is what it was. I actually just went and looked it up during that ad read, Aaron. 6.5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss since November 9th. That is your Florida game for those wondering. Florida's pretty deep into the season. Before then, he had just 1 tackle for loss. So if you can get that second half production for an entire season, you might have something really special there, especially with what we just talked about with Colin Simmons returning. But I'll be looking at DJ Campbell. I do think that another year in college would help him a lot. I know that he's a guy who wanted to go 3 and out. Coming in with that 5-star rating, I believe, is one of the highest overall offensive guards in the recent era of recruiting. It's tough to stay a 4th year, especially when some of the guys that you came in with are departing for the NFL already. But I do think Campbell would benefit from 1 more year. And then really, and Rod, let me get your thoughts on this, because it's been a talking point in Texas Twitter. All the seniors or all the guys that were graduated and moving on have all made some sort of announcements, right? They've thanked Texas, but they've also made draft declaration announcements. And you don't normally see that for guys that are out of eligibility. You think it's just one of those things where it's just their way of saying thank you to Texas fans? Or, should there be maybe on the lookout for seniors who haven't made that announcement tomorrow as well?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. That is a weird trend. I understand for the guys who are underclassmen and declaring, those who still have eligibility. But you're right, when the guys who have exhausted eligibility, I mean, yeah, of course you're going to the NFL draft. You ain't got no choice. So I don't really. It's kind of a new thing, but I think it's just part of it. Like, and they put the draft, like the symbol on there too, like the little draft logo on there too. It's on there. So I don't get. Even my man Quandre Diggs actually brought that up too. He was like, I wonder why all the guys keep saying, the guys who have exhausted eligibility keep saying, hey, I'm declaring for the draft. It's like, yeah, you ain't got a choice. Like, the draft, that's declared for you. You don't have to declare for it. It's declared for you.
So that I saw that Keelan Robinson last year had that similar post, and I was like, why do you have the draft logo? I didn't think I saw enough. And sure enough, he got drafted by the Jaguars. So
maybe it's about keeping hope, but you got it's not about think it into existence, you know what I mean? So maybe it's about that, but I get it. It's a new thing. It's
new. I chuckle at it in the NFL, Rod, when some guys have a big retirement press conference, and some people have just been retired, and then because they can't get a job, and then they announce I'm retired.
That's me. I got retired. I still haven't retired officially, but I got a notice from the NFL that you've been retired. You're gone. Would kick in and all that kind of stuff. Like, you've been retired, man. We don't need. You ain't coming back. We good.
I'm trying to think. Maybe Matthew can find it there. I think there was a player at the University of Iowa. Maybe it was somewhere in the Big Ten that put out one of those real nice looking releases, and it said, I'm officially declaring for the job market. I need a damn job. And it was a classic, well written. I need a damn job, y'all. I gotta go get a job.
For real, I love that.
Officially declaring for the job market. Hire me, please.
That's what I feel like with these guys, though. It's like, you're out of eligibility, man. You can't go back. You gotta go. You got to go.
Got to Got to go. And again, if you're just jumping in here on the On Texas Football channel and YouTube here tonight on our Tuesday live stream, as CJ said earlier, the attrition is a real thing, right? The players that have an opportunity to seek, a possible jump into the portal and see what their value would be. Real concern, as Bobby Burton reported this morning on Coffee and Football, for one of the, starters from last year's team. Apparently that's been remedied. Oh, here we go. Here he is. This is Washington. I'm officially declaring for the job market. I need a job.
I love it. Gritty, hardworking, sneaky athletic. There you go. Locker room guy.
Lunch pail, baby. Lunch pail.
There you have it. No NFL draft logo, but the LinkedIn symbol next to the Husky.
Well done, young man. Well done. Well done.
Props to you. I'd hire you if I had a company. I'm telling you.
Right? Yeah,
that's my guy. Lunch pail guy right there. But yes, I mean, the word here halfway through tonight's conversation, as you said, CJ, there's one that looked concerning for sure this morning, maybe has tipped back the other way. And there's still one, as Bobby Burton told us, starter who you want to keep your eyes on as we go into tomorrow, because tomorrow is the deadline.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting, And again, for those that we were monitoring in terms of the portal, well, you never really know until the ink is dry or if the name appears in the portal. So we'll see. Of course, tomorrow is going to be pretty hectic for a number of reasons, right? It's January 15th. Everybody's getting paid. That means us too, right? But even more so, that's going to be the guys in locker rooms at Texas, making their decisions, announcing coming back. Or portaling. So we'll see, of course. And then there's also a 5-day window after Notre Dame and Ohio State play in their national championship game. I know Texas fans probably just muted me after I said that, but they get 5 days as well to make their decisions for portals or returning to school, which is kind of odd, Rod, because semester started. Kids are in class again.
Yeah, that's a great point. Are we just assuming that starters who are, even if there's rumors about a starter who would hit the transfer portal, is it about NIL opportunities, NIL negotiations? Is that what we're assuming? Because you're a starter, it's not about playing time because you're a starter.
Yeah, and that was one of the big questions, because we talked about Texas maybe wanting a running back in the portal early on.
Mm-hmm.
You got a couple guys that are dinged up. You don't know what Jaden Blue is going to do. Evidently, he entered the NFL draft, and it all came down to who put up great numbers elsewhere would want to transfer into what's going to be a very crowded room.
Oh, yeah.
On the flip side for Texas, and we're talking about two guys that were big pieces of this team this year, where else would you have a better opportunity to play on the field? Probably not many places, right? You could think of maybe an Ohio State, maybe a Georgia, in terms of a better place to play football than Texas. But even then, Texas, the only school in the country that's been back-to-back top fours. So I do think that in large bits of it, and it's different. Maybe a kid wants to go home. Maybe they have a sick family member, whatever. But more or less, NIL becomes a big part of some of these portal conversations that you see from starters.
Gotta be.
Well, and obviously, we talked about the development a minute ago. I mean, back-to-back years now, you've seen A.D. Mitchell come in from Georgia and elevate and end up in the top 40 of the draft. Matthew Golden is now being talked about, maybe the number one receiver. Gunnar Helm, no one was projecting him. And I want to talk a little bit about that with you, CJ and Rod, the tight end position. We talked about offensive line and receiver and where these things may slot. We know Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, and some of these guys are going to be the focal points at receiver with the pass catchers moving on. What about tight end? I mean, Sark has said a lot. It's the number 2 most important position on his offense behind quarterback. And Gunnar Helm was tremendous this year. JT Sanders the year before. He and Juan Davis are both moving on. How do you see the depth chart? And I know they jumped in the portal early talking to the kid Max Clare, but he ended up Ohio State. What do you think they do at tight end?
That's interesting because there's a lot of bodies. I would kind of argue that maybe your most talented or highest ceiling guys are going to be your youngest guys, right? I think Jordan Washington has a heck of a future ahead of him. I think Nick Townsend, who arrives in the summer, heck of a future ahead of him. But I don't want to discount maybe a guy like Spencer Shannon or Amari Niblack, who we didn't see a lot of this year. There's just something to being in a trench position when you have multiple years of experience or college weight room to you, right? That plays a pretty significant role for me. Again, the most recent example in my eyes is Ja'Tavion Sanders, 5-star guy to Denton Ryan. Didn't play at all his freshman year. And then you saw him take over sophomore year, and then you saw him his junior year, and you're like, okay, he's playing the way that maybe we expected him to play. You don't really have experience, and you don't have a lot of, snaps, if you will, at that tight end spot right now. I'm looking at Amari Niblack to take a big leap. He was a guy that played 370 snaps at Alabama a year ago, only 90 this year. But what can those young guys give you? Because I do think that the most physical of the bunch are going to be your Jordan Washingtons or even a Nick Townsend whenever he arrives. He's just got that mentality, a little wired different for most of those tight ends.
Yeah, I don't think we talked enough about it. I'm sure we discussed it, but Gunnar Helm's season, that ended up being a record-setting season. I mean, he set the single-season record for receptions and receiving yards for a tight end. And I feel like, considering tight end was an endangered species on the 40 acres for like a decade plus, I don't know. I just feel like we should appreciate Gunnar Helm's season a little bit more, man. That was phenomenal. I mean, for like half the season, he was your leading receiver and your most explosive receiver. Talk about guys who increased their draft stock or improved it the most. He's definitely in that conversation. Did not see that happen. That was not on my bingo card, that Gunnar Helm would have the potential, the greatest season for a tight end ever in Texas football history.
Yeah. Well, it's a priority position, no doubt. Good point. And we saw over and over again in the playoff, Arizona State, Ohio State, when Quinn needed big throws, they needed big plays. The reliable players were Gunnar Helm and Matthew Golden. Trey Wisner were the go-to guys without a doubt. So those two guys were huge. Hey, what about Will Randall? Is that just a name that came with Arch Manning? Or is that a guy? His body type is similar to that of a Gunnar Helm. We know he's a smart player and he's one of Arch Manning's best buddies. Is that a name to look at?
It's kind of been a slow, steady recovery for him since his ACL injury. Of course, that happened his senior year. It wasn't all the way back his freshman campaign. Just working to get the body right now. I think you just need to see a little bit more from him when given the opportunities. I think he's a bit lower on that depth chart going into winter conditioning and what eventually will become spring football. But we'll see. Look, we're surprised by people every year. Michael Taaffe was a walk-on. Gunnar Helm, almost, nobody expected him to become a top 5 tight end in the country this year. So I wouldn't count it out completely. I just think it's a bit of a steeper odds going into this year.
Well, it's a good thing, Rod, to have the quarterback in your corner, right? Arch Manning will be rooting for Will Randall and a guy that he knows well. That helps to have the quarterback be your buddy. Guys, as we look to January 15th tomorrow, payday, as you said, and also everything going on. Beyond that, CJ, is it once you've secured who's in, who's out? Is then back for these coaches who get zero breaks at this point and it never slows down? Is it back into the portal? Obviously, got a recruiting class coming up early February, the second window. But at the same time, is it back into the portal to try to fill some of these holes we're talking about and see what's still in there?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I do not envy the position of a college football coach in 2024, 2025. Look, the kids are already back to school, but coaches are already preparing for junior day coming up on the 26th. They're preparing for filling up their 2025 roster. And right now, this is kind of a pretty interesting part in the calendar for the Longhorns is, the semester has already started. You don't get that benefit of having a week or two before kids get back to campus to go out portal hunting, see who's available, and then add them to your team, right? That semester's already began. So you got to add them now or within a week so they can get into classes for the spring semester, or you basically got to go wait until the spring football period and window open up once again. So it's a tough spot for these coaches 100%, especially the coaches that, if you're a Ryan Day or Marcus Freeman, if you're even Steve Sarkisian, who, is starting to look more towards the portal now, it's kind of a detriment to making it this far as what's to come next year.
All right. Is in the portal? I mean, CJ, do you think with Quinn Ewers moving on, is one of the things we were asked this morning is Trey Moore ready, or Trey Owens ready to be the backup quarterback? I mean, if Arch Manning's your quarterback, is Trey? Do they go out and find a veteran QB just in case kind of thing, or is Trey Moore ready, or Trey Owens ready to be that guy?
Look, I thought he made great strides in year one. And I know you don't hear a lot about the third-string quarterback, especially as a true freshman in year one, but look, if this spring game was any sort of indication of the level of kind of headiness that he had to him, that competitiveness and ability to come in and want to compete right away, I think Trey Owens is going to be fine. We only saw him for a few passes in 2024, but hey, he had a few completions right off the bat, and those throws look pretty good. I believe his first completion was a backside hash comeback to Isaiah Bond, or an out route to the far sideline. That's a tough throw, and he's got the big arm. The question is, and he's not what I would say a mobile quarterback, but he's a guy that can evade in the pocket, something that is very difficult for a guy his size to do. I've likened him a little bit to Ben Roethlisberger, and that's a tall comparison, I understand, but a guy of his size being able to move the way that he does in the pocket without necessarily looking to run. I really liked what I saw from Trey Owens. I think getting that second group snaps in spring football let's talk about the wide receivers he's going to be throwing to. It's going to be, Jamie French. That's going to be Khalid Lockett. That's going to be Dalen McCutcheon for the most part. Those are really good wide receivers. Who knows what, Aaron Butler or Parker or Livingstone look like as well. I think he's going to be in for that next level leap, and he'll be just fine for 25.
All right. Yeah, I got to tell you, I love Trey Owens. I think he's great. I really do. I told you guys before the spring game, I was like, he's going to show out. I told you guys before the spring game, I said, telling you, I've watched enough film on him. Y'all going to be pleasantly surprised. Everybody was pleasantly surprised. He's got some special. He's got some of that it quality, guys. He's got it. He's got some competitive sickness. He's borderline arrogant, which I think you need to be if you're going to be playing behind Arch Manning and behind guys like Quinn Ewers and be in that kind of room. I think you need to have that about you. And he is I'm telling you, man, I think he's got some elite tools to work with as a QB. So I see what Sark saw in him. There ain't no doubt about that. And in H-Town, like I said, anybody that can beat Katie, you're doing something right.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I know friends of mine are coaches at Cy-Fair, and he's got that dog in him they talked about. I remember he was only a 3-star player, and Sark loved him. I love that competitiveness, and Sark talks about that's got to be the first thing, man. I need someone that's going to compete for it. I need someone that's going to fight for it, and Trey Owens is that guy. He'll be the backup to Arch Manning moving forward. Let's get some super chats in here. First, Rod, tell them about Hargrove Roofing. Another one of our great partners on the On Texas channel here all the time, and certainly here on this Tuesday night. Then we'll get some of your questions and super chats in.
All right. Thank you to our friends over at Hargrove Roofing. You can see their hargroveroofing.com. You can reach out to them, or you can give them a call, 512-645-3202, with offices all over Louisiana, Texas, and of course Arkansas. He got offices in Austin as well. Hargrove Roofing will take care of all of your roofing needs. Plus, they're Longhorn friendly, folks. They got partnerships with my former teammate, lifetime Longhorn Stevie Lee, also lifetime Longhorn Bert Arbin as well. The most pro burnt orange roofing company out there. And you can call them today, and they're offering a free roof inspection. Best price you're going to get, ladies and gentlemen, $3.99. Give them a call today, 512-645-3202. Know who's on your roof with our friends over at Hargrove Roofing, the choice for customers everywhere for a superior, reliable service. If you're in need of a new roof, you'll want to know who's on your roof with our friends at Hargrove Roofing, hargroveroofing.com.
Before we get to the chats, guys, I don't know if you guys, either of you are watching the Tomorrow Golf League with Tiger Woods before we started. I thought that was pretty cool, man. The indoor golf league. I was watching that. I'm watching a little bit over here.
Indoor golf league?
Oh, it's cool, man. Tiger Woods out there walking out to Eye of the Tiger. It was pretty cool. And he's playing on the team with Kevin Kisner and Max Homa. It's fun. It's all indoor, but that's a cool setup. I think that's going to do pretty well. We started on ESPN tonight. That was neat to see Tiger back playing golf, and his kids are in the stands giving him the business. I think that's pretty cool. Hey, let's get to some super chats, and we certainly appreciate them. This says, shout out to Colton and his UT degree. There you go.
Let's go, Colton.
I like that.
I did my last note in the Longhorn band a couple days ago after graduating. I'm heading to Cain and Abel's for the last time before moving out of Austin for a big boy job. Thanks for everything. Way to go, Colton. Good for you, brother.
Good luck, brother. And
Colton, let me tell you, I missed the old location of Cain and Abel's right in the heart of West Campus. I know they bumped it right down 24th a little bit, but I think you, myself, I did it as well, and just about anybody else. Rod, you too, that graduated from Texas. Just one more dollar beer at Cain and Abel. That's the best way to send it out.
Damn right.
Close it down.
Yeah, I'm right. Good stuff there, Coach.
I went to St. Ed's, guy, so I won't say where we went right after the last.
Oh, I know y'all with it. I know exactly where it is. Yeah,
this joined the live. All I know is we got Jonah Mofo Williams. Way to go, William Rosenthal. Appreciate the super chat.
Yeah,
there you go.
Beast, man. That safety position is loaded, guys, for a few years now. I mean,
well, he's already here, and he's gonna play baseball right here in the spring season.
Yeah.
You're loaded with that group for a while.
That's gonna be big time for sure. This says Rod, how was our run game inconsistent with 3 or 4 NFL draft picks on the O line? Running back injuries to be the important, maybe undervalue running back injuries, confusing. Hookem. This is from Samir Paul. Thank you, Samir.
Thank you, Samir. That you know what? Maybe you and I both, Samir. Maybe we all kind of undervalue the contributions of Cedric Baxter. The lack of a inside running game. The truth is, just on the surface, it looks like if you shut down Texas wide zone, which this year that was their, kind of called the bread and butter run play. That was their identity in the run game. They ran it at a top 10 rate in college football. Trey Wiseman was top 10 in rushing yards on the outside zone. And the teams that stopped it, Georgia both times, Arizona State stopped it, and Ohio State stopped it. And you really didn't have a counter. You didn't have a contingency plan after they stopped that concept. And then your run game dried up. So I think the next step for Sark is, there are a few things you got to work on: red zone offense, goal line. You do have to figure out how to get your gap power schemes executed better with the O-line. And now you got most of that O-line leaving. So maybe it'll just be this O-line will have a different strength than your previous O-line. But there's no doubt Sark didn't really trust him in those situations, which is why he's tossing the football on the goal line instead of running right ahead in some gap power situations and trying to play bully ball. He did that multiple times. So I just think that it's strange for big humans not to be able to just move another human being against their will. The analogy I throw out there is when you see that really tall kid who in high school is like 6'7", and he doesn't play basketball, and you go, what are you doing? You don't play, you're not even gonna go out there and just put your hands up, dude. You're 6'7". Like, that's looking at our O-line, they kind of remind me of that, where to be as massive as they are, you would assume that they do a lot of gap counter schemes and they run downhill and play bully ball. They actually don't. They're more of a zone blocking group. And so I just think ultimately, when your wide zone dried up, Samir, your running game went by the wayside, and Sark can't allow that to happen. That happened. That happened too many times. All your games you lost, your run game dried up. In Arizona State, you probably should have lost if not for 4th and 13, and your run game dried up. That was one of the other commonalities in your losses in the games where you struggled. Got to get the run game going.
Yeah. Well, and I know the CJ Baxter thing's been huge, been much debated. I think it was huge. Obviously, we talked about it when it happened here on this Tuesday night live stream. I think it happened on a Monday or a Tuesday of one of the first practices for Texas, and it was a really impactful injury. Started as a freshman and just that 230-pound big back. As even as the Ohio State game was Friday night, difference might have been Quinshon Judkins. I mean, they had a big power back that could plow it in from the 5-yard line or the 3-yard line. Ohio State had some offensive line injuries and issues too this year, but they had that back that could carry guys into the end zone, lean in. I mean, Quinshon, record setting in the SEC at Ole Miss for touchdowns scored. That guy knows how to get to the end zone. Texas really just didn't have that guy this year. This is being 24 years old, winning in the last decade. I'm just glad Texas is relevant again. Sark's next step is to find out how to beat teams with equal or more talent than us. Thank you guys for all you do. D-Money, that's a nice one. Appreciate you, D-Money.
I would say this to add to that point you just made, though, because you hit the nail on the head. Ohio State, when they had their injuries on their line, they want to be an inside zone running scheme. That's what Chip Kelly likes to do. And they had to flip and become a gap power scheme. Yeah. Late in the playoffs, they were running like close to 80% gap power schemes because it was better, more compatible with the skill set of the O linemen that were starting at the time. So you can do that. You can kind of switch midstream. Texas just wasn't necessarily good at it. But to your point, maybe it is the running backs. Getting back to what Samir brought up, you get the right backs, and then they can help you execute those schemes better.
Yeah. The last time Texas was real good in the red zone, right? They had Roschon and Bijan, and they would just plow it into the end zone, exactly. Even behind lesser offensive lines. I mean, those guys are, and that's it. Those guys are, to the point of you maybe underrate the running back position. Guys who can find the end zone and a nose for that end zone and find that crease and push the pile. Those guys are worth their weight in gold for sure. Is Silas Bolden gone for sure? I've never played football, but I thought he could have been used in a sort of a Wes Welker type role. Keith wants to know, was he used enough? Thank you, Keith. That's a great super chat. Silas Bolden?
No, he was not used enough. He was not used enough. And look, I say that in the sense that every time he touched the ball, which wasn't often, it felt like it was a big play. And this, I'm speaking on offense only, because special teams punt return, that was more a coin flip of whether or not your heart's going to be jumping out of your chest or your jaw's going to drop, right? You just don't know on a given punt return. But towards the end, it certainly felt like he had that, he had that juice or that jitter, right? He gets the ball and he just goes. And that play against Ohio State, I know he kind of rolled off of a body and he went for about 23, but that's a play Texas didn't have, right? They didn't have a guy, at least not healthy in that game, that was able to create something like that. So I was one of my big confusions about this season is you have a guy like Silas Bolden who can make you miss in a phone booth. How can you get him the ball in more creative ways? I don't think that there was enough of that this year, which is pretty unfortunate because I think he is a pretty versatile piece that you could have used.
I agree. I know he played in high school with C.J. Stroud, and C.J. said he was kind of like Tank Dell. It's what when he really started to work with Tank Dell, he's like, hey, man, that's like my guy Silas. I mean, those two little guys, but Rod, you mean that you can't cover them. I mean, you just can't stay in front of them. Those slot receivers, see Ladd McConkey now doing it in the NFL with the Chargers. I mean, those guys that can own the middle of the field. I know he's small, but at the same time, he doesn't take a lot of big hits. I agree with the message and with CJ. Probably should have been utilized more in this Texas offense, not just on the punt game.
I'm with you. I thought he was shifty. He's one of those guys that's just as quick as he is fast, and I hate covering guys like that. Guys that go from 0 to 60 real quick, get in and out of their breaks real fast. So he's twitchy. So I'm with you. I'm surprised we didn't see more specialized boutique plays for him. Just straight up. I mean, Jerry talked about how he would line up in the backfield at times at Oregon State. I'm surprised they didn't use him more on those whip routes.
Yeah,
getting him in and out. Put him in motion. They do a lot with DeAndre Moore. Put him in motion and then run him on that whip route. Man, he would be fantastic out running that. So I don't know what happened. Coaches love him too. I mean, they love him. They love because he's a culture guy. Remember that play he made in the Oklahoma game? Plays hard. Has a great attitude. Haven't heard anything about him complaining about not getting enough snaps. So I don't know what happened there. That's kind of one of those mysteries.
I look at Aaron's comment here. He's in that Keelan Robinson column. Guys, we could have used more. Look, even Keelan Robinson last year had his own package, right?
He did. Yep.
Texas designed a lot of plays for Keelan Robinson to get the ball. And I know that the wealth of riches at the wide receiver spot wasn't what it was last year to this year in terms of depth and numbers, right? Texas was pretty stuck at 3 for the most part. But we saw more Keelan Robinson last year than Silas Bolden. And look, Keelan Robinson's a good football player, but I think you're seeing a more natural pass catcher with Silas Bolden, a more natural route runner with Silas Bolden, which may be a bit confusing. But when you make it to the semifinal, everything that you critique now is just a little tidbitty, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you make it to the semifinal and you're a yard away from being in a tie game with under 2 minutes to play. I mean, that's as close as you can get. The winner of that game probably has a good chance to win the national title, without a doubt. And by the way, to wrap up that super chat, Silas is done, right? I mean, he's out of eligibility. Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How much did we miss our Gunners this year?
That's Daniel. A good question, and
that is true. We did miss them.
Look, my biggest thing with special teams this year is I think you replace a lot of veteran guys in 23 with a lot of younger cats, right? You had Keelan Robinson, speaking of which, and Keaton Crawford chasing down, every punt essentially in 2023. This year it was Gavin Holmes at times, but you saw DeAndre Moore, sophomore. You saw Warren Roberson, a sophomore. Guys that were younger. As a result, you had more penalties, right? Warren Roberson had a number of penalties this year. Mari Nyblack had surprisingly like 3 or 4 penalties and very limited action in special teams as well. But you also had a freshman punter, right? And I think that played a big role in it as well. So yes, you did miss the Gunners of Crawford and Robinson from 23, but I think above anything else, you just missed the punter who had a veteran leg and was an all-conference guy.
Do you, we look forward? I know they brought in the portal punter from Utah to be the lead punter, and you think it'll be Will Stone? I know Bert Auburn's coming back. That'll be a competition through the offseason at the place kicking position.
Yeah. Look, if you make the change in the biggest game of your year, I have no reason to think you're going to revert back to it moving forward. I mean, I think that just does too much to a psyche of a kicker. It's tough. But I also think, at Texas, shouldn't ever go a year without getting a portal kicker or punter, right? I think you should just live in the portal. You should say to hell with high school recruiting, because why waste a scholarship on a guy that you're going to have to develop at a specialist position when you can just go out and get a guy that's been all conference in the MAC or in the ACC even, right? Texas just went out and added the guy from the Big 12. That was the 2-time all conference punter. Why would you not do that to begin with? That would, again, I'm kind of spitballing here, but that's exactly what I would do. Those positions, though, may not feel like they have a big impact. We saw firsthand this year just how much they can change games, change field positions, change momentum. And if you can go get one of the top 5, 6, 7, 8 guys in the country, do that. Feels like a no-brainer.
I agree.
All right. Rod, can we tell them about Mr. Ludicky one more time, and then we'll get to wrap up the super chats. And I have the Football Coaches Association has a proposal out about the transfer portal window. I'll get you that here coming up, and there'll be pushback, but I think it's a good idea. But Rod, tell them about our friend Andy Ludicky as well.
Yeah, most certainly. If you're looking to diversify, you may be someone like me that has their hands in a lot of different businesses. Well, Andy can help you. He can help you diversify by finding you different businesses that will fit your time allotment and your financial goals. You can give him a call today, 404-973-9901. If you're stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and very little control over the money you make or your schedule in general, give Andy a call today, and he will take you through a process to help you find businesses that will fit your skill sets and your financial goals. Franchise ownership isn't for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your financial destiny, Andy can help you with that. And just give him a call, 404-973-9901. That's 404-973-9901. Or you can email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. That's andy@myperfectfranchise.net. Thank you very much to Andy Ludicky and his team for being a part of our team here at On Texas Football.
Absolutely. And Hargrove Roofing and Mark Saunders and everybody that makes this thing roll and click and keep you rolling in here. And all those super chats. This is any speed guys Texas is seeking in the portal, Siege?
Great question. We saw today Penn State wide receiver Amari Evans entered the portal at wide receiver. He has 1 year of eligibility remaining. On top of that, he's from Killeen, went to Killeen Shoemaker, which is about an hour 20 north up 35, not too far. So a Central Texas kid, had 21 receptions this year for 415 yards, which, do the quick math there. If anybody knows it, I'll be surprised, but 19.8 yards per reception, 5 touchdowns. Not a guy that they threw to often. No games with more than 4 receptions this year, but definitely a guy that you can look at and say speed in a Penn State offense. If you're averaging 20 yards of reception, you're doing something well. In his senior year of high school at Killeen Shoemaker, he made the state final, the UIL state final for long jump. So springy in the legs, got good speed to him. Would make sense whether or not Texas pursues or not. I think it would make sense. He had 27 offers coming out of high school. Texas was not one of them. So we'll see. But to me, that would make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And Sark always likes that elite deep speed. Isaiah Bond was supposed to be at this year. Then he battled some injuries. Xavier Worthy for several years. Last thing I want to ask you guys, do you think is there a freshman that's coming in that's already here? Maybe it's Michael Terry. Is there somebody that can be one of those immediate impact type guys on the offensive side of the ball, CJ, for you?
For me, I look at Jamie French.
Okay.
Maybe a Khalid Clockett. I think it'll be interesting to see what Texas does in the portal, obviously. But when you look at the skill sets Texas currently possesses in the wide receiver room, Ryan Wingo, big body, deep threat. DeAndre Moore, a guy that, should he return, obviously that's, one of the guys that we're looking at, whatever. DeAndre Moore, we're saying, hey, you do the dirty work. You got to be that guy that can lead block, crack block, go deep. We talked about it, one of the big guys that had a lot of success down the field this year. You have a lot of success down the field moving forward. Now, can you duplicate that? What do you need next to him instead? I look at a Jamie French. I look at maybe a Khalid Clockett, another deep ball guy. But also, Parker Livingstone's a name that I'm looking at. Because I think that's a guy who, under the radar, because I know we're talking about 2 5-star kids coming in. Parker Livingstone, his senior season, not healthy for the duration of the year. But the first game that I got to see him, 150 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, a kickoff return, and a passing touchdown. Kid can do it all. At 6'4", he ran 21.69 in the 200 his junior year of high school. He's got deep speed. He's got great hands. He's been cross-trained across the board at wide receiver. That's a kid I'm looking at saying, okay, we might not have seen a whole lot of him this year, but look out for the spring because I think he'll start emerging.
Parker Livingstone.
I like that.
All right, guys, wanted to show you guys this tweet from Yahoo Sports and Ross Dellinger. You're talking about how crazy it is for college football coaches right now, the whirlwind of a season into this. It says, this is Ross. He said, Craig Ball, the head of the AFCA, and AFCA coaches are proposing a move of the transfer portal to a 10-day window in early January after bowl games with spring window eliminated, except for graduate transfers. This is a push. I don't know if it's, they'll get sued immediately if they push this through. But that's at least out today that coaches would like to see the portal. It's still available. You still have player movement and available, but wait till the bowl games are over, 10 days, and then nothing in the spring. We'll see if that gets off the ground.
Ooh, yeah.
What do you think?
I think they definitely need some more parameters on it. I wonder how it'll be received. I guess it doesn't matter much what the players think about it, but I think the players like the movement. They love it.
We should all say that the other one thing's going to happen too is the new Senate is gavelled in. Ted Cruz and the Commerce Committee it's in Washington D.C. are going to make some type of federal college football, college athletics legislation. One of the early pushes. I know there's other things to worry about, but that's the Commerce Committee. There's a lot of money involved. They are going to do something, I think, pretty early here. Obviously, the House settlement will be coming. So a lot of changes still coming here in the next 6 months to how college football is operated, without a doubt.
Yeah, why not just wait till that goes down and make it a part of that?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hey, CJ, I'm going to ask you this as a Cowboys fan. Who do you want to be the next coach of the Cowboys?
I'm so lost with the Cowboys. I've come to terms that they'll never win a Super Bowl in my lifetime. Give me Prime. Give me Dion.
Just for the fun. Just for the fun, right?
This is entertaining.
You're going 9-8 regardless. You're going 10-7 regardless. Who cares? It won't matter.
Hey.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he's right, man. It's entertaining. At least you'll be entertained. Be good or be interesting. If you ain't gonna be good, at least be interesting.
Yeah, if you're missing me with Kellen Moore, that's going to be Jason Garrett 2.0. Go ahead and just go ahead and give me Dion. Just go ahead and get Dion.
If it's Kellen Moore or Jason Witten, I mean, what are we doing here? You might as well have just hired Dion. At least make it fun for us to watch.
Exactly.
So
Well, if he hires Jason Witten. Again, for the he should just get rid of the charade, and he should name himself the head coach, and we can all move forward, exactly. Right? Let's all move forward.
Yeah, put your headset on yourself, Jerry. Get down to the sideline. Let's see your best.
That would be the theater. Come on, man. Jerry down there. Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. All right, guys. Thanks so much. I mean, the news is coming fast and furious. That means we'll be covering it here on Texas football. You'll have a kid before Dallas wins another Super Bowl. That's funny.
Yeah, you're probably right.
That's good. Hey, it's been fun as always. We'll do it again next Tuesday. You guys will be back tomorrow with Coffee and Football and all the shows throughout the day. Obviously, the very latest. Tomorrow will be a very important day. Each day there's breaking news by the hour, it feels like. Today, the big news, Michael Taaffe will be staying as the member of the University of Texas, which is huge for the Longhorns without a doubt. And we'll follow the developments as they come into tomorrow. January 15th is the day the portal closes, the window for the Longhorns. And then, obviously, the last day to declare for the National Football League. So we'll be following it here on Texas Football and all the here on the channel, on the website, and on the digital platforms as well. CJ, great work. Rod, as always, man, good to see you. And let's do this again next week.
Yes, sir. Thanks,
Matthew.